The Prime Minister today is going to be doing something. He's unveiling a plan for change. He's setting new targets, milestones they're called this time round, to reset his government's agenda.
Well, it comes as Sir Keir Starmer's approval ratings have plummeted. A +7 approval in the aftermath of the election. Well, he's now facing a -29-point approval rating.
Well, amongst the pledges we're expecting from the Prime Minister include promises on the economy, the environment, crime, the NHS and barriers to opportunity.
But the question remains, will migration appear as one of the PM's top pledges? He faces further pressure from Reform UK.
Well, let's talk to the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, who joins us from Westminster. Good to see you this morning. Thanks for your time. What do you make of these pledges? I mean, it was a huge mistake, actually, for Rishi Sunak to lay out the pledges he did 12 months before the general election, wasn't it? And it seems the Labour Party not learning from that.
Good morning. Well, I think what we're going to see today is essentially a desperate, panicky attempted relaunch by Keir Starmer of his government after only 5 months, because they are failing so desperately. And, you know, we've seen the winter fuel payment being stripped from pensioners, including pensioners in poverty. We've seen these massive, massive tax rises, which Labour lied about during the election campaign. They said there were not going to be significant tax increases. That's turned out to be a complete lie. And they've hit all of us with these massive tax rises, which people like the CBI and the retail sector and the hospitality industry tell us is going to result not only in lower wages for working people, but also actual job losses. And all the while, Keir Starmer was loading up on freebies from Lord Ali and handing out bumper inflation-busting pay rises to his trade union bosses. And that's why, as you said a minute ago, his approval rating has plummeted. The figure I saw was -32%. So it's no wonder he's trying this desperate, panicky relaunch to try and rescue what has been a catastrophic start to government.
Well, he will say that a large part of this is because he's inherited a dire situation. And if we look at the pledges that he's going to lay out today, part of that will be policing reforms in order to make people feel safer on the streets. And he's got a point, hasn't he? Because under the Tories, since 2010, violent crime has increased significantly. And conviction rates, for things like burglary and rape, are shockingly low. I mean, rape is at 1.6%.
Well, the number of crimes recorded went up in some crimes because people got better at reporting and the police got better at recording. I mean, total crime, measured by the crime survey, actually went down. The number of homicides went down. So to give you the numbers, in 2010, there were 620 homicides. Last year, murders. Last year, there were 590. That actually went down. And there were record police numbers as well, over almost 150,000 police. Now, I'd like to see them, as I've said on this programme before, cut out all the non-crime hate incident nonsense and only look at that where there is immediate risk of criminality and focus on catching criminals using new technology like artificial intelligence and live facial recognition. So those are all things I'd like to see happen. The announcement we're going to get today from Keir Starmer on policing is, as predictably, is a bogus, dishonest and misleading announcement. He's going to announce, I believe, 13,000 more police officers, but it turns out only 3,000 of those are actually new, and he's not even giving the police enough money to pay for those new officers, so they're going to have to cut something else, probably cut police numbers elsewhere, in order to deliver his promise. So even today's announcement is going to be completely dishonest, just like Labour's entire election campaign.
Yeah, but he's going to have to... I mean, it's the idea of having sort of more bobbies on the beat and having more community officers has got to be a welcome thing, hasn't it? And that is something that was cut by the last Conservative government. I mean, when Theresa May was Home Secretary.
Well, I definitely want to see more police on the beat and more crimes investigated, obviously. Yeah, there were reductions when Theresa May was Home Secretary because obviously the then Labour government from 15 years ago bankrupt the country and they had to make savings. But those officers were more than replaced under the Boris Johnson government. And we got to March of this year, March the 31st this year, 2024, with more police officers than we've ever had at any time in history. The exact number was 149,769. That's a record number. Now, I'd like to see those officers on the front line. I want to see more of the bureaucracy stripped away. I started doing that as police minister. We saved about 1 million hours of police time by cutting out some of the bureaucracy and some of the time they spent looking after mental health patients, which the NHS should be looking after. But there is more you could do to strip out bureaucracy and make sure those police are on the streets, on the front line, catching criminals, and definitely not wasting time policing tweets, which we saw a few weeks ago.
Can I ask you about the Opposition Day motion yesterday on UK farming and inheritance tax? Obviously failed to pass, but Kemi Badenoch and you have been very critical of all of this and of this plan. What's the next steps? How are you going to continue to try and fight the farmers' corner?
Well, I imagine we will try and, amend the finance bill as it goes through Parliament. We'll keep the pressure up. We had that vote. We forced a vote. We forced a vote in Parliament yesterday, and Conservative MPs, including me and Kemi, voted to support British farmers and to stop this terrible Labour tax that will see family farms that have been farmed for generations being lost. And it was, I think, terrible that Labour did not think again. They continued with this awful plan that will see farms being lost. It'll damage our food security. It means we'll end up importing more food, and it will actually put up food prices for all of us. So this terrible idea of Labour's to attack farms is going to it won't just affect farmers, it'll actually end up affecting all of us in the form of higher food prices, and we're going to have to import more food from overseas as well. But we're going to keep the battle up. We're going to keep working with the National Farmers Union. We're going to keep finding ways in Parliament to put Labour on the spot and try and engineer further votes, because we on the Conservative side are standing firmly with our farmers, just as we are standing with the pensioners who Labour have attacked, just as we're standing with the businesses who Labour have attacked, and just as we are standing with working people who Labour have also attacked with their swinging tax rises.
Can I just ask you for a touch of realism in all of this? So, because it's your job to do these things in Parliament and to stand up against what you don't believe in. But with a supermajority, will any of it actually make any... realistically, will any of it actually ever make any difference until Keir Starmer decides to call the general election?
Well, you're right. Obviously, Labour, unfortunately, do have a big majority. It's partly because, a lot of people who would ordinarily vote Conservative voted Reform, and that, as we warned, that let Labour win a massive landslide. So it is tough in Parliament. We are going to struggle to win votes, but we have a constitutional and a moral duty to fight for farmers and pensioners and working people and families, and we're going to do that. We're going to take the fight to Labour, and even if we're going to struggle to win votes, we're going to still try, of course, but even if we struggle to win votes, we're going to make the arguments. We're going to try and persuade the government to change their mind. We're going to try and mobilise public opinion. We were all out with farmers protesting in Whitehall a couple of weeks ago, and I think that, I'm an optimist by nature. I believe if you campaign hard, if you work hard, if you fight hard, then you can bring about change. Obviously, the best way of doing that is to win an election and kick Starmer out. The public seem to agree, given his approval ratings are minus 32% already. I hope we can win the next election. We'll fight hard to do that. But in the meantime, we are going to work night and day. You can see me standing here in the dark, in the freezing cold this morning, taking the fight to Labour, because someone has to stand up for working people, pensioners, farmers, businesses and others, and that is our job in the Conservative Party. It's my job, it's Kemi's job, and no matter the parliamentary odds, we are going to keep fighting that fight.
OK, well, we really appreciate your time and you standing in the dark and the cold for us this morning. Chris Philp, Shadow Home Secretary, good to see you. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, let's sort of former advisor to Boris Johnson. Oscar Reddrop, morning to you, morning. Oscar. What I find astounding in all of this, we've got to give a balanced view, but it just seems like the Labour government is presenting people like Chris Philp with so many open goals. The sort of impassioned plea at the end of what's going to happen, what they're going to do and what could happen in the next election. It is literally an open goal.
There are plenty of open goals. Chris Philp just ran through at the end of that interview all the members of society who the government have really hacked off in the short amount of time they've been in power. Farmers, small business owners, pensioners, you know, the list goes on. However, I thought really quite skillfully addressed a slight elephant in the room, which is that what can the Conservative Party truly do to hold this Labour Party to account at the moment? And there's a cold, hard reality for people like Chris, who's a really, really good communicator, very, very experienced minister. The country aren't quite ready to listen to the Tory party yet. The credibility isn't quite there yet, and that takes real time. You know, you look at someone, particularly the lack of mention of immigration in this, you know, yet another reset from Keir Starmer today. Are the Tories best placed at the moment to really kind of drive home that wedge, to really take advantage of that open goal, as you put it? Probably not. It's probably at the moment handed over to someone like Nigel Farage and the Reform Party. So they're in a tricky place. People aren't quite ready to really take them seriously as yet. So they need to bide their time. The open goals will keep coming, though, because I just don't have a lot of faith. And I really actually don't say this, even though I used to work for Boris. I don't actually take a lot of pleasure in saying this, because I just want a good country that's functioning and doing well. But the Labour Party and Keir Starmer don't have a particularly good political antennae, an instinct where you don't have to workshop everything and do reviews and, you know, quangos and all this. Like a leader that has an instinct and can just feel what the country needs and wants. He's just, not to be like, you know, Simon Cowell on the X Factor or anything, but he's just not. He just doesn't have it. In my view, he just does not have that X Factor, that thing that you can't.
Well,
teach
he's not presenting it, is he?
No, but in fairness, there is he's calmed things down, and Morgan McSweeney, the new chief of staff, I think has done a good job at calming things down after Sue Gray and all that kind of madness across the summer and early autumn. So, you know, the proof is going to be in the pudding, and I think the electorate, they're so tired of politicians not delivering. So tired of it.
Yeah, OK. Oscar, we've got to leave it there. Good to see you today. Thank you.